Good to meet you. Wow, thank you all so much. And I want to thank Shanda and Alan for having us here. What a great location. It's so bright and cheerful. Thank you.
Hope you like coffee.
I do. I do. I'm about to try it. Well, thank you all for coming and having this conversation with me. You know, it's clear that there are so many challenges facing young families today that we have got to come to grips with, and we have to work together to try to find the best menu of options, because there's just no one-size-fits-all. People have different needs, child care needs, sometimes even more, as Shanda and I were just talking about, even more challenging with special needs kids and how we start early and provide that sort of support. For some, it's family leave, and particularly the absence of paid family leave, because that makes it more difficult to deal with everything from newborns to aging relatives. Others, it's just continuing stress of a workplace that doesn't provide enough compensation with rising incomes. There still is a challenge with equal pay for women, which is real, not made up. And there are lots of concerns in the workplace that I'm hearing about increasingly about the workday never ends. The schedules are often unpredictable. And even when you think you're gaining some, control over that workday, it's subject to so many variables that are out of your control and often end up throwing big monkey wrenches into, what should be your family time and your efforts to try to organize and stick with that. So I hear about this all over the country, and I really want to talk about it and hear from you more than me talking, because there are some sort of obvious, maybe even typical responses, but I'm trying to get a much broader view about what will work. These are issues that I've worked on for a really long time, going back to my own life as a mother, a daughter, and some of the challenges there, but also in the work that I've done for the Children's Defense Fund and other ways of trying to figure out how we have a more cohesive and frankly welcoming set of expectations and supports for families in today's world, because it's just harder, I think. That's just my take. I mean, I think costs are greater, everything from commuting time to feeling like if you take that vacation day, you're going to be viewed as slacking off. I mean, there are cultural as well as economic and structural challenges. So I'm just very interested in hearing what all of you might have to say. And then I've got a couple of people with me who've worked with me for a long time and thankfully are still helping me. Ann O'Leary, standing right there. Ann is an expert in children's and women's issues. She's worked with me ever since the White House in the 90s, and then worked with me in the Senate. She's a mom with 2 of her own kids and lives all of this stress and challenge. And then Jen Klein, who's there, also started working for me. I confess to, child labor. Started working for me in the White House back in the 90s and has been, part of my extended team for a long time on a lot of these issues as well. And she's a mom with 3 kids, one of whom's now 19, so she's kind of facing new challenges with older kids. And Capricia Marshall, who's here somewhere, who's a great friend of mine, who's also worked with me on these issues. They all live in D.C., which is why they're here, to sort of hear and help me sort through it all. Has a high school-age son who is the most extraordinary center of the universe, whom I've known since he was born. So let me end there. And Shanda, do you want to kick it off?
I would just like to say thank you all for coming here to Mug and Muffin, and I hope that you've enjoyed your experience, and we just want to welcome you and open it up for discussion.
Great. So who would like to start? Who wants to brave it? Yes. And please just introduce yourself so everybody knows.
I'm Abby Macbeth. this isn't necessarily a kind of federal national issue, but I'll say in Loudoun County, as residents, something we face with our daughter and now with our son is that being in the county with the highest median income in the country, we still can't provide our kids with full-day kindergarten. And as a family, with both of us who work, and I travel a lot for work, having to pick our son up at 10:50 every single morning when he's been in school for 3 hours is really, really hard. And there are a lot of stay-at-home moms in Loudoun, so for plenty of people, I suppose that's easier. But for those of us who work, it's very, very difficult, and it puts a lot of a time burden as well as a monetary burden with having to then pay for additional daycare for him every day, and then he's still not getting the instruction that I think he deserves. And it's really a difficult thing for us.
Well, I did look at the statistics about the county, and at least the statistics I looked at, most mothers work. Whether they work full-time or part-time, they work. So it's not that this is a luxury that can be provided for a few. This is the way families are structured in this county and most counties around the country. And maybe somebody can tell me why there isn't full-day kindergarten. I know this has been a challenge going back years, and I know that in some places it's taken longer than other places to get to all-day kindergarten. But perhaps you can tell us what the official position is.
Yes, so for those who don't know, I'm on the local board of supervisors here in Loudoun County. Welcome to Loudoun County.
Thank you.
Secretary.
Thank you.
Glad you're here. So yeah, we're definitely struggling at the local level. We try to get it past this budget season, and unfortunately, we're able to push the needle forward a little bit more than what we were before. We were at around about 35%. Now we're at 50%. Our goal was to get it at 75%. So, you know, Board of Supervisors, we allocate the funding to go to the school board, and then they divvy it up how they see fit. So, for me, who wants to see full-day kindergarten here in Loudoun County with all of our families, we need help from the state side to get more funding from the state. We need definitely, if we can get some funding from the federal government as well. So it starts also from the bottom going up, and I believe it needs to start from the top coming down as well.
When you say 75%, what 75% of
our schools
have full-day kindergarten?
By next school year.
By next school year.
75%.
So you are on a track to try to provide that.
We're slowly getting there because, there's 90-something counties in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We are the third that does not have it, and we're the only one that does not truly have a plan to really to get us there. We're doing little by little.
Right. The last thing that Abby said, which was so important, is all the research is very definitive. Those first 5 years of life are critical to getting many kids, not all kids, because some kids get whatever stimulation and attention that they need from their home or from whatever other setting they're in. But for a very significant proportion of kids, they need to be given those opportunities, those educational opportunities, earlier than later. I would even argue that it's important to get the full-day kindergarten done in the county, but then to look at early childhood education, pre-K, other opportunities, particularly for kids from disadvantaged and low-income backgrounds. But if they're high quality, they would benefit many kids. When you think that by the age of 3, 80% of your brain is physically formed. And, I'm looking at very attentive parents, I know, who have spent time reading to and talking to and, otherwise stimulating their children. But it's hard for a lot of families. If there are 2 earners and both are working, that's hard. If there's only a single parent, that's really hard. So part of it is, how do we create a better system that is, number one, affordable? Because I also looked at the numbers. Loudoun County is like many places in America right now where paying for child care is really expensive. Quality child care. What you think of as quality child care. What you hope is quality child care. And in some parts of the country, especially around really big cities, the cost of quality child care is as much as tuition at a public college or university. So I think that, the state and the county, the public school districts have the role to play, but then we've got to look at how we create a much more robust structure so that more kids get that early instruction, that safe, quality, structured time, and obviously full-day kindergarten progress. That's good.
We're making progress, and hopefully we can get some progress from there.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep talking about it because there's no doubt that it's important.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Hi, Esther Lee. I led the Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship in the Obama administration. You probably know in the last 30 years, almost all net new jobs in this country were created by entrepreneurs and innovators. And I brought my kids. I took them out of school to bring them to meet you because I thought this was educational. I will say when I go into their schools now, very little has changed from when I was in second grade and kindergarten. And I would love to get your thoughts on what we can do to really train the future entrepreneurs and innovators in this country, because I don't see education has changed that much, at least in the elementary schools. And
No, that's a great question. I think we are really at the cusp of having what I hope will be a really serious, productive conversation about elementary and secondary education. Because I agree with you to a point that a lot of what it looks like looks very similar. And I can't speak, obviously, to the instruction, but we've had a really serious debate. Sometimes it got quite heated in the last few years about what is it we want from elementary education. And the answer on one side is we want more tests, we want to know what people are learning, and we want to be able to hold them and their teachers and their schools and their districts accountable. And that has created, that's created a very big backlash, and the backlash has been led by parents. And there are different reasons for the backlash, but sort of underneath it, as I talk to parents in places where what's called the opt-out movement, opting out of taking all of the tests, is pretty strong, parents are saying to me, that's not what my child needs. My child needs to be, the creativity needs to be sparked. The independent learning, the collaborative learning, it's not all about taking tests. And I think we need better but fewer tests. I mean, we do need tests. You need diagnostic tests. But you don't need as many tests as we were moving to that almost became, I would argue, a substitute for the kind of serious conversation we need about how do we restructure elementary and secondary education to really lift up kids. Now, once you start that conversation, there are a number of different sort of sub-areas you have to pay attention to. We do have a real problem with disadvantaged kids not getting the kind of instruction, and frankly, not just instruction, the kind of educational environment they need in order to prosper. And we have stripped a lot of courses and a lot of extracurricular activities and a lot of support services out of many of our poorest school districts. And it's heartbreaking because at least I was exposed, even though I was terrible at art and music, I was exposed to art and music, and I had physical education every day and when I was in elementary school, and we had all these projects we were always doing. We put on plays. We did so much that led to kids taking greater and greater responsibility, and that brought everybody had to be part of it. It wasn't a select group. It was everybody. And now you go to a lot of school districts in our country that are poor districts, and they have just been stripped. They don't have bands. They don't have art. They don't even now, in a lot of places, have sports, extracurricular. So we've got a set of problems arising out of those kinds of challenges. Then we've got schools that are fine, but are really trapped in the past, as you're describing. They're fine schools, you wouldn't. I always say I used to have the Chelsea test. Now I've got the Charlotte test, but I send my child to this school, and so they're fine schools, but they could be doing more if challenged to do more about how to change learning to emphasize more independence, more creativity, and collaboration, because the two really go together. Interdisciplinary, absolutely. And then you've got schools that are just taking off. They are very well resourced, and they have good creative leadership, and they're kind of setting the standards. Some are traditional public schools, some are public charter schools, and we need to be learning from them. So I think that every community should be having these conversations, and it's not enough to say this is the way we've always done it, or this is what the budget says we have to do. We need a different approach where we go to the supervisors, where you go to the school boards, and you say, here's what we're looking at. And how we use technology is another big issue, because technology can be just the greatest empowering instrument, or it can